And by our last game of the year, we had 16 kids dressed. I'm like, where is everybody? You go from 0-9 to 7-3. I think we did something. I was like, I need something that's going to bring them in. The kids felt like losers. Think about one thing you can do today to win. Start documenting wins. Win at something. That's a classic football coach line. We do what we do. Where we're at right now in the game of football, do what we do doesn't work.
Yeah. Welcome back to another episode of Clubhouse Talks. Today we're joined by Coach Joe Zaccone from Point Pleasant Beach, one of our first football customers. So excited to have you on to talk about you and your program. I think what you'll speak to uniquely is coming from a small school and the kind of different challenges that come with it, and the way that you've adapted and things that you've learned from it. I think it'll be great for other coaches maybe entering something similar or just can pull some takeaways that you've learned, even if they're in a bigger program. So great to have you on. I'd love to give you some background to our listeners about like who you are, what kind of program you're working with, school size, things like that. So we can get some context here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Really excited to talk just, everything that involves the game of football on and off the field, which is really cool. So a little bit of my background. I'm actually a big school kid. Like I went to a big school in Toms River North. So the way we do our groups in New Jersey is we do 1 through 5, 1 being the smallest and then 5 being the largest. So my background of playing football was at a group 5 school at one of the largest schools in the entire Shore Conference of 42 football teams. So I had that side of it where you had, different, sections of the locker room because it was so big. You barely had enough, uniforms, to fit all the numbers, and had, thousands of kids. I graduated with about 750 kids in high school. So then fast forward to coaching at different places. I was able to land a head football coaching job 7 years ago here at Point Pleasant Beach, which is the smallest school in the entire Shore Conference, a group 1 that has 300 kids right now in the entire school. So I graduated a class of 750, so you're talking 3,000 kids. And now we have about 10% of that total, male and female, here at the beach. Point Pleasant Beach is your classic shore town. We have a lot of people that don't live here year round, which again is, a fight for numbers, because it is a more affluent town. A lot of people hear Point Pleasant Beach and they think boardwalk, beach, water, beautiful houses. We actually have a lot of kids who live in apartments. We have a lot of kids that are, we do have some apartment complexes. We have houses that are above restaurants and, things that are in town. So that's kind of a misnomer of, the clientele that we have here and the type of kids that we have. We have some pretty tough kids that have, definitely had some interesting backgrounds to get here. And I feel like football has been that answer for them for some things that are kind of tough when maybe their buddy is having it pretty good. There's definitely, 2 different, sides to that coin. And being at group 1 is a very different dynamic because we play a lot of schools that are going to be larger than us simply because there's only 5 group 1s in the entire Shore Conference out of 42 teams. So you can only play kind of so many, right? You're going to have a schedule of at least 8 regular season games. You're going to play some schools that are bigger and that, there's just natural challenges, especially in a football, when you're building a program. However, I'm very lucky. I get to teach here at the middle school. So I get to know the kids from the time that they're in, pre-K kindergarten, because we are so small. We have a pre-K through 8, and then we have a high school. So my whole staff teaches at the high school. And then me being the head coach, I get to be here at the middle school. Twofold's pretty awesome because my daughter goes to school here with me. So I get to have my number 1 Gulfs fan. We get to have that time of, talking and just daddy-daughter time that, during the football season when you're grinding and it's long hours, it's, that 20-25-minute car ride is pretty cool. Because I still live in Toms River today. So we're still that Toms River guy who's at the beach. It's cool to have both. I can't afford a garage in Point Beach. I would love to, but what's great is my parents now live in town. But again, you're talking about the town. My parents are retired, so no kids. Much as great as it is that my parents are in town, I'm like, Dad, you got a couple kids that we can get in there, But it's great. My dad has always talked about, being a little bit closer. My sister is a principal up north, and so she lives in Paramus. So now Point Pleasant Beach a little bit closer for them when they come down. It's easier for them to stay. Boardwalk, arcades, all the fun stuff for when my nephews are down. So we're a little community. My wife is in the child study team here at Point Pleasant Beach, and she's also the assistant cheerleading coach. So we're Gulls, man. We're a family, and it's that small school feel. When we have homecoming, it's pretty cool because you literally can see the cars from the field because we're like a square. We're so small that you see the cars that the kids are on while we're practicing for that homecoming game. To me, I don't think there's anything like that. Friday night lights here, businesses will shut down. We have people having tailgates in their driveway, right along the strip there to the field. There's something special about that. More people, as we're starting to have more success and getting more kids to come out, they're starting to see that. And I consider myself very lucky to be in this particular place right now, which is a place that where we grind for what we get. We fought hard for a schedule that makes sense and is competitive, and we expect to keep winning games and having fun while we're doing it. So, I'm just a guy who's kind of living the dream, to use that coin, to use that tagline. I am. I love the game of football. I love sports, and I get to be a head football coach. You kind of write that down when you're a kid, like what you want to do. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I get to teach kids. I get to hang out with kids all day and, get them to learn and be better, humans. And I get to coach football. All right, not bad. I'll sign up for that. I sure didn't sign up for the money. That's for sure.
So I feel like there's so many. I didn't even honestly think about this till we started researching and putting things together for this interview. Of the realities of coaching a program in such a small school in a small town poses a lot of different challenges that other people don't even think about. And joking about like even your parents have kids that join the program. I bet everywhere you look, or like especially in the middle school, like telling the kids, "Hey, you can play football."
Yeah.
Like things. I bet that is all the time. Is just trying to keep interest high for football to get kids into the program. Could you speak to kind of like these, especially coming from a big school, maybe challenges you didn't even think about were going to be challenges running a football program in a small town? What type of things are you dealing with that kind of changed the way you thought about what you had to focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, football, right? You just think kids are going to come out for football, like, especially when you grow up in it and you have so many kids, you got 5 guys fighting for one position. It's like, oh, kids come out for football. One thing that's changed significantly is the amount of kids that play youth football. And that's, group wise, whether you're group 5 or group 1, that part's a struggle because there's just, there's less contact happening. There's more parents that are saying, I don't want my kid to get hurt. I can't tell you how many times I hear that, but unfortunately, that's everywhere. But when you have 150 males and you got parents saying, well, I don't want my kid to get hurt, man, that takes about 20% out of, not a big handful. You're talking 30 out of 150 now that, oh man, we lose those kids. There's that selectization of sports now. A lot of kids are playing one sport instead of 3. My thing about Point Pleasant Beach that I think is more special than anywhere is the ability to play all 3 and to play varsity sports in all 3. Football, I always thought freshman level, JV level, varsity level. When I got here, instantly, we didn't have a JV team at all our first year, let alone a freshman team. So when I was an assistant, we had just varsity football. So for me, I was blown away at how can we create a culture and program here? We're only playing 10 games a year as a program. I went from 30 to 10. Like, how do you develop that? So again, when you talk about recruiting the hallways and things like that, when I was able to get the head coaching job, that was my main thing to do, is just get athletes excited about lifting weights, not even football, lifting weights, because of the camaraderie in there. So being in the weight room and that vibe and the music and the loud and just working together, we started to get kids that said, okay, this is what you do to play football. I want to play football. So I had to kind of change my mindset. I thought football was enough to get a kid out because everybody watches on Sunday. Less kids watch on Sunday now, and they watch differently. They watch because of fantasy football. They watch because my guy just got 10 fantasy points. They don't know that Jahmyr Gibbs scored a touchdown because the guard kicked out the D end. They just know because Jahmyr Gibbs is really fast. He's really good. They don't see it that way because they just got 10 points on their fantasy team. So the game has changed. Everything has changed about the game. So you have to do it in a different way. So I was highlighting more of the athletic parts of it, like the lifting part, the looking good part of it, the being out there on Friday nights and being in front of your community, not so much the game of football. That was a big shift for me from a group 1 standpoint. But once we started to get those kids out, those athletes, you get them out and you have to teach them the game, because you couldn't just get out there and be like, go to linebacker. They would kind of look at you like, what's a linebacker? And to me, I'm like, oh, I got to slow it down even more. I mean, to that level, is that they don't know. You're only going to have a handful of kids who really understand the game. So it's not being frustrated by that. It's opening to that, being very open to athletes being out there and teaching them the game and how it works together. And then using those kids who understand the game as natural leaders right away, to use them as like them showing to you, because again, they hear one thing and out the other. Everything's got to be so fast. I need instantaneous, reaction one way or another. When they hear an adult speak, a lot of times it's kind of like they're in school, right? They kind of tune you out. But if you have that kid who's saying, hey, this is what I did and this is how I became successful, it's going to help that kid that's maybe never played football before. because the
Mhm.
majority of our kids have never played organized football before. And that was very new to me. Thankfully, now the flag game has become more popular. So these kids are getting concepts of the game. Contact again leads to, I don't want my kid to get hurt, or this is really hard. But we're getting through those things by making the summer more fun. We make it very instructional in terms of, we're installing the playbook, but every Thursday, and this started from year one of being a head coach, Thursday, we meet up at the beach. My biggest thing is, how do I get the kids excited about what we're doing and not feel like this is just another thing? Because they have to get up early in the morning, because I want the kids to be able to go to work. A lot of them are lifeguards. A lot of them work at restaurants, because we are a beach town. These kids work. And that was a misnomer to me. I just kind of thought kids were going to be fine. You know what I mean? But they work. So we have to be on the field at 7 a.m. That's early. You know what I mean? That means I'm opening the locker room at 6:30. So how do I make that running around in t-shirts and shorts in July? I'm not going to really get kids. Thursday, what we wind up doing is we do beach battles. So I get the kids tank tops, red tank top, white tank top. I make teams. We're red and white. Thursdays, no matter what's going on in July, we meet up at the beach, 1 hour on the beach, and we compete. And the kids started to get just so excited about being, what team am I on, about competing. They knew they were done by 8 a.m. They had Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. It was just an excitement that had nothing to do with football. It just had to do with competing with their brothers, competing with their boys. And that led to more kids saying, wait, what's that? You know what I mean? Because it's a picture on social media. It's a kid talking about it, on the weekend or at work. Yeah, we were up on the beach Thursday. We didn't even have to go on the football field. I came in board shorts and a tank top. They're like, wait, what? And they're like, yeah, I got my red tank top. It's got Goals Football. We got a sponsor on the back, and I wore board shorts, and we crushed it for an hour, and, we broke together as a team, and we called it a weekend. That to me was like the shift of things, where you didn't focus so much on football. You focus more on the team stuff. You focus more on the camaraderie. You focus more on being together. And from there, it's like we started to get more kids, and more came out because they just wanted to try that stuff. And then they wound up sticking it out, because once we get them, we'll typically keep them. And that's usually anywhere. Usually you're going to get the kids that are just like, nah, that's too hard. It's too early. I don't want to wake up. And you never get them. But if you pull them in, even for a couple little things, you don't force things on them, and you just say, hey, try this out, and that approach, it's worked for us. And that's something that we've continued now for 7 straight years. And that's kind of like the first question is like, oh, who's running our beach battle workouts? And I don't run the beach battle workouts. They hear my voice enough. I get somebody that's usually another coach. I'll get somebody who's in the strength and conditioning world. What's cool is, because I've coached long enough now, Dr. TJ Abrams, who's got his own chiropractic practice now, I coached him at Homedale, and now he's the one who runs our beach workouts. So you're talking years ago, I had this guy on the football field, got to know him, watched him go through college and push himself to get to his own business. And now he's the one running our workouts, and it comes full circle, because then he tells them stories about the younger me. He tells them stories about when he first met me and how he was the phone call that he made when he wanted to drop out of college. And he's like, well, this guy, he's going to really help me with school too, because, maybe parent situation is not so good, but maybe this guy's going to help me with school. Then they see that we don't start practice till 3:30, because I literally will have open sessions of kids getting their work done, or inviting the kids to make sure that they're going to get extra help. Oh, wow, I can get extra help too. I'm not stressed about what the sport is. Then you get more kids like that, because then they're not going home and getting the stress from their parents, or, your grades, or you still have all this work to do. Looking at it like that in the big picture, the scholastic picture, the student athlete picture, it's worked.
Yeah. And I'm sure having them hear it from somebody else, and it obviously takes time for coaches to build that, where somebody can come up to that point and speak to their experience with you. But I'm sure hearing it from somebody else who has firsthand experience too adds a level of trust for the kids. Naturally, high school kids are going to doubt and try to, rebel against whoever their authority is, and to have somebody with to say and back you up and show from experience, I'm sure helps those kids. And how many kids were in the program when you first joined? You mentioned you only had a varsity team. How many total kids were playing football at Point Pleasant Beach?
25. By our last game of the year, we had 16 kids dressed. So
wow,
it was 0-9. It was, I think the differential was something along the lines of 300 points for the other team and about 30 for us. It was doldrums. It was bad. And now Point Beach, up until that point, Point Pleasant Beach had a very nice run. Now the division was very different. The schedule was very different. We partnered with another group called Middlesex, which had other Group 1 teams. So it was very similar competition. So for a nice 8-year stretch, Beach, they won a state title in 2013. they went to another state final in 2017. And, when you look at it, and for me, who had coached a couple different areas, I coached at Monsignor Donovan, so a parochial school, Homedale, which is a larger, like a group 4 public school. And I coached at some Toms River schools, which are larger group 4s and group 5s. For me, when I got the call from one of the guys that I coached with at Homedale, who was getting the Point Pleasant Beach job, I looked at Point Beach. I'm like, this is awesome. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm going to go there. They've been extremely successful. The coach was smart. You know what I mean? That coach who left at the high point, he left at the high point because he kind of saw where things were going. Divisions were starting to shift. Kids' mindsets were going a little bit differently. Selector eyes of sports. He kind of saw at the end there that a lot of kids weren't really coming out as much. They still had 35 kids, on the football team, maybe 40 kids on the team, but they had a solid 35, 40. So when we came out and, that's what we had, the new coach had got the job around March, April time, so you're kind of playing catch up at that point of, getting a culture. Like I said, I feel like it kind of just fell on its head a little bit where the kids just didn't have a belief in what we were going to do. And a lot of kids just chose not to do it. We had 3 seniors, that year. And those 3 seniors were on very successful teams. And, we just didn't have that success. And then, we didn't really have a young group coming in. We don't have a feeder program, typically I just think Toms River, it's like, okay, Pop Warner and you play football. Like everybody plays Pop Warner. We don't have that. Pop Warner fuels to the borough side of Point Pleasant, which is a larger town. Beach, we don't have enough kids to have a feeder program. They have to play that and then come to us. So it's like you're kind of going around to get to, instead of a straight line, you're going around to get there. So I saw the difficulties in that. And having that year, you got 20. This is the first practice. You're like, okay, like new system, new go. I'm like, where is everybody? You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? Where are the rest of the kids? And the kids are like, this is it. And then, you're going to have your war of attrition. You're going to have the kid that gets hurt or the kid who decides to not make it out. We probably started around 28, 29. Then you're down to 25, first game. And then you're going to have, the ankles and the shoulders and everything else. And then plus you're going to then, we're getting beat up. And, little nick becomes a larger injury, just naturally. By the end of the year, it's like you barely got enough to field the team. We only played 9 games that year. We couldn't even play a 10th game. Because we didn't have enough kids, didn't have a JV program. So those young kids that weren't playing were watching the other kids getting beat up and they're like, we don't even get to play. We have to watch this happen. I get it. That's not fun. We even had some meetings at the end of that particular year with parents that were like, what do we do? We may need to co-op with another program. Like, can we have a football program? And that led to the head coach, deciding to go his separate ways because it was going to be a lot. He had a family and things like that. He knew there was going to be a lot more than he probably thought would go into building this program. And then there's me who said, all right, well, this is an opportunity for me to be a head coach, which I always wanted to be. Maybe I don't know what I'm getting into, but I sure as heck want to try it. And thankfully enough, the good Lord above graced us with a belief in me that the kids had, that the community had. I was able to keep a lot of the coaches on staff that the kids knew because I wanted that. I was not teaching in Point Pleasant Beach at this time. I was teaching, 40 minutes down the parkway. So I didn't know, I wasn't into the culture. I was just there as the assistant coach and built up enough of a following with those kids and a belief in those kids that, we wound up having 40 kids come out that next year and we won 7 games and, co-division champs and, had a playoff berth. So it was one of the biggest turnarounds in, short conference New Jersey football history. You go from 0-9 to 7-3. I still remember my first game ever as a head football coach. We played a school, Manville, that's out here, another Group 1 team. And, if you probably had a spread, I'm sure the spread was a couple of touchdowns on their end. We wound up winning that game 28-7. And it was at home. So it's like that from that moment on, and it was a belief in what we were doing. The kids worked extremely hard, those beach workouts, working out in the gym, doing what we needed to do, installing a new offense, installing a new defense, believing in what we're doing, and a lot of energy. And, when you had the crowd there and seeing that happen, I'm like, oh, I think we did something, and now 7 years later, here we are. And, through its ups, downs and its roller coaster, we had COVID, which when you're at a small school, imagine what COVID did to us. That was a new challenge that came after that 7-win season, so it was like, we're playing in pods and can't travel. And it's like, I'm wearing a mask when I'm outside coaching. It's like, what did I get myself into? I thought this, I'm like, oh, 7 wins, this is easy. I got this, again, new challenges hit their way. But I have to say, I have a great group of coaches that I work with. These are guys that like you want to just hang out with and the kids want to, be around. So when you have that, you're winning anyway, because the kids just want to be around them as much as they want to be around you. And now we're here. So it's pretty exciting.
I want to dive into what kind of got you from the 23-man roster to the 40 in that short amount of time. And I imagine when you're taking over a program, like you said, when you were coming with the other coach year before, I bet it's, excitement to start putting in your system, to do everything you want to do with the program. And then you realize I don't have a team right now. So you have to change that excitement to something completely different. Tell me, I mean, you mentioned a little bit earlier with the weight rooms, but I love to get like tactical with somebody who's it needs to build their program and needs to generate new excitement. Maybe they do have a program, but they need to get better kids involved or more kids involved. Tell me like tactically kind of how you got from that 23, really less than 23 because of injuries or graduating seniors, to 40 at such a short amount of time too. It's not like you're building a youth flywheel that kids are coming up. That's pretty, yeah. So tell me about that.
Absolutely. You know what? I think it was the relationships I built with the coaches, that year when I was an assistant, because those coaches were in the high school. So, and I was on the outside kind of looking in. And when those guys were confident in me kind of taking the role of it, and that they wanted to support me, then there was going to be more buy-in for the kids, because that's what the kids see every day. They don't see me every day. They see them every day. Jeff Bauer, our defensive coordinator and our head wrestling coach and our head golf coach. They see him in multiple sports. They see him every day. He's also the PE teacher. At the time, Mike Pelicane was, he's a special education teacher and coached baseball. And so he was around the kids. So it's like these guys that were in the program, they had belief. So they believed in me, which in turn, there was just more excitement of them when they were talking to the kids. I was lucky enough that I still was working with the weight room during all this time. So even after football ended, the weight room was there. And my big thing of the weight room was inviting all athletes, everything that encompasses Point Pleasant Beach, male and female. And as crazy as it sounds, having both the male and female in there, some of the female athletes working out in there have brothers. They have kids they're dating, kids that they're involved in. Hey, you should probably come around to this. It started just word of mouth, right? And then when I was eventually got the job and you had the kids that wanted to come back, because the thing was we only had 3 seniors. So the very least I knew we had a lot of younger kids that were coming back, or at least hopefully coming back. And we had those kids that were on the fringe that had played before in the past. So you start talking to those kids and getting them excited. I was like, I need something that's going to bring them in, right? So I had a meeting that was just of anybody really interested, any athlete, and of anybody who's just interested in weight room, football, playing another sport, just kind of come in. I want to introduce myself to you. Like, this is who I am. And I kind of just put my heart, on the table a little bit of, hey guys, I'm nervous about going for this job. I'm nervous about what's ahead of me. I've never been a head coach before, and we did not have a lot of success. Yeah, I'm nervous. I'm very anxious about what I'm getting myself into. I think vulnerability and transparency works. It's the kids that are like, this guy's real. I can at least live with that, right? Then my biggest thing was win the day. So before we got into anything of what we're doing, the kids felt like losers. And there's no worse feeling in the world than feeling like you're a loser. When you're embarrassed to walk, you're not wearing any Point Beach football stuff because you don't want to. It's like, how can we flip that, right? So win the day. And that was my biggest thing. And win the day had nothing to do with football, because at that time it was only like, April, May, whatever it may be. How can we win now? So my biggest thing was, guys, think about one thing you can do today to win. Hold the door for a female teacher coming in. Look at somebody in the eyes when you're talking to them. Handshake, and the right kind of handshake, a firm handshake. Do something for your parents without them asking. Make your bed. Any of those things, start documenting wins. Win at something. Win in any way possible. So, and again, I'm not telling them so don't feel like a loser anymore. I'm just changing the mindset. And you look at wins, you look at like a scoreboard. Oh, well, we just got beat by, 56 points. We stink. We're losers. All right. That's in the past. Win at something. Come to the weight room today. You didn't have to come to the weight room today, but come to the weight room today. Stay after school. Get a better grade on the test. Do those makeup corrections. Win at something. The kids started to then see these little victories, started talking about the little victories, because I can only say so much, right? Like you said, that we talked earlier, as an adult, it's very easy to tune you out. Even if you're a fiery, excited, I like to think of myself as a very excited individual. I'm pretty happy to do what I'm doing. And I have a genuine love. I'm a heart on my sleeve type of guy. I love what I do, and I love being around, this game. But again, I'm still an adult. I'm still an older guy. I'm still, I keep the hair short because there's a lot of grays that come in. I'm still an older guy. You know what I mean? Like I'm still somebody who they may look at like a parent or an older brother who's just like, he's just telling me this. That's not the way it is. So getting them to believe in that and then talk about it, and male, female athletes, brothers, sisters, getting everybody to talk about it was something that just really worked for us. And that word of mouth got us to probably about 30. And then we started getting closer to the season. And then it was like the big meeting, that big football meeting. And then those couple kids who were on the fringe came and it's like, all right, well, this guy, let me give this guy a shot. And then it became like 35. And then we started with those beach battle workouts and, doing these type of things. That was a little bit different than what they've done in the past. Now they can go back to that kid that maybe played as a freshman, but didn't really like it. You know what I mean? And now we have numbers, and now we're telling kids, hey guys, now we have 2 levels of football. We have a JV program, and now we have a varsity program. So now we have 20 opportunities to play a game. You know what I mean? If you're a freshman, you have an opportunity right away to play either JV or varsity. Like that's open for you. That got, more kids excited. And then from there, we had that, that number grow, and we were able to have the kids stick in the program. And thankfully, like I said, the success of that particular year, I'm still a head coach now because of that year. You know what I mean? If that year went sour or if that year fell on its face, I don't know what I'm doing right now. So the stress and pressure that I put into that year to see it out and to see those kids win on the football field and get that feeling again, it's why I'm here right now and blessed to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, it sounds like, you're preaching it to the kids of little wins, but it sounds like in your own way too with the program, you were getting your own little wins of getting people into the weight room, getting people then, like you said, then we're doing the beach battles, then we're doing the big meeting, and it was like you weren't focused on, it didn't seem, it sounds like now, you weren't focused on the record at the end of the season. You're just trying to get to the next step, which probably is good to keep your focus on the little wins, but you're just trying to get some traction and get going. I'm sure if you were focused on that, the end result the next season, you probably wouldn't be able to get any traction because you're so far removed from what really needs to be done.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't be myself. I would be tight. I would be, I would be very stressed. I'd probably be quick to lose my temper or to lose my belief in what we're doing. Again, you have to look at wins, not what a scoreboard says. Getting that kid to come out or getting that kid to stay in the program is a win, and getting the kids to want to wear Point Beach football stuff again, to want to wear Ghost football stuff again. It's huge. We had spoke a little bit earlier before we talked about some things with the podcast. You want pride in what you wear to work outside. What you're wearing means something. It's what you wear across your chest. I wanted Point Beach football, and now eventually, as we've kind of adapted over the years into this Gulls football brand, I want it to mean something. And I want them to mean more than just what they did on the field. I want them to mean that coaches, they have my back. They helped me get into college. They helped me when I wanted to drop out of college and I didn't know who else to call. Like that's what I want a football program to mean. And I think that's what the football program means to these guys. And not just me. They can call any of the coaches in the program. And now we have guys who are alums of the program that are now coaching. Guys who have been involved in the program and have seen ups, downs, and everything in between. And now they're coaches. We have teachers that make an impact on a daily basis who get to coach the game of football and who are with these kids. It means something. That's where you win. Like you said, these little wins, that's where you're winning. Football has become a 365, thing now. It's very hard to coach multiple sports when you're a football coach, just because there's so many different meetings and there's so many different opportunities and there's so many different things that come up that you have to be there for. You're the face, right? You become the face of the high school, in a sense, because you're the team that's starting in the summer. Teams will occasionally do a couple of things here in the summer. Football, you got about a week when school ends and then you're playing football. You're playing, we play games now in New Jersey before the school year even starts. So kids are still in summer mode and they get to come out and see a Gulls football game. You want that to be awesome for them because now they're going into school and they're running through the door because they can't wait for Friday night, and that, is a lot of pressure too. I've been coaching now for 20 years. There is not a time that before a game I don't get extreme butterflies or get nervous, start to pace, sweat, get the veins going on my neck and everything else. So I'm winning because that's the feeling I get. I should have that feeling. If I don't have that feeling, I shouldn't do it anymore. And I think the kids know, like, if he's that into it, and he believes in us that much. Hey, the least we can do is meet him halfway and give all we got. So, and the best part is I have a coaching staff that's the same way. They give everything that they have, and it's not just X's and O's. There's so many conversations that happen about life here at Point Beach. We talk about that small school that you can't do at a big school. I had some great coaches growing up. Coaches that really have shaped so many things, but I didn't get to have a lot of life conversations with them. You have these wide scope conversations. You can have legitimate conversations with these kids about, hey, my girlfriend just broke up with me. Can you help me out with some stuff? Couldn't do that at Tom's River when he had 100 kids. Be like, go get another girlfriend. See you later. Get out of my office. But mental health is a real thing. And these kids, you want them at their best, right? You want them to win. How can you win? You get over that girlfriend. You get over that bad test. You get over that mom's nagging you. You get over that dad hasn't been at a couple of your games because he's working too much. But they can go to us as coaches at a small school and vent on those things. And, we can kind of talk about those things and help them rise above that. That's where I think the Group 1 small school thing, as much as it's got its tough stuff, that part, you can't beat it. That's why I can't imagine ever coaching at a larger school or even any other school for that matter, because of what we get to do here for these kids.
Yeah. I feel like, in growing your program, I think it's like a example too of people, no matter if they're high school kids or adults, want to be a part of something. They want to be part of a group. They want to be part of somebody with a leader that's bringing them somewhere. And for what you did, you gave them a weight room and a place to come together and build something. And then there's the part of Point of Pride where I think you bought 60 hats last time from us. Is that right?
Yep.
So you didn't have 60 hats to give away when you first joined. You couldn't give people a hat to want to wear. Nope. And I'm sure down by the beach, the kids are seeing other kids from other high schools, and they might be even embarrassed to wear a Goals hat because that kid's wearing, their high school stuff. And they're like, you guys couldn't even field a team for that. So you couldn't even give those away. And this year you're buying 60 hats to give to the players, the parents. People have a Point of Pride. So I think giving people you kind of made this whole new almost feeling around Goals football that people want to wear it. And that builds over time. It doesn't just come, you mentioned this earlier when we're off camera, of you don't just print a shirt and put family on it and say, this is who we are. There's, as silly as merch can be, there is kind of an underlying meaning behind it that can change the feeling within a program if done thoughtfully. And it seems like what you do with what your orders have been with us have been thoughtful and just a kind of an extension of your brand that you're building from the weight room stuff and the beach stuff. And can you speak to any of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that it's continued to grow. We put things on that are intentional. Like I said, they're putting family on the back is an easy way out, right? Naturally, you're a football fan, but how are you a family when you're giving t-shirts out in July when you don't know the kids yet? It has to mean something. It has to mean something that you've built for the season that you don't see them. I'm wearing Clubhouse athletic gear right now that's got 212 on the side. What is 212? We put it on our helmets, and 212 is our team goals. And 212 is 211 degrees, water begins to boil. 212, it turns to steam. Steam has the power to power an engine. So that 1 degree makes the difference. Again, win the day was the tagline, right? That got the kids excited. How can we win? Small wins. There's got to be that thing now as a program, as Goals football, that's got to be synonymous with Goals football. And you can't take that lightly. You can't change it every year. You can't change your identity. You have to be that, and you have to live that. That 212 to us, the kids believe in that because we've adopted it from the very beginning, and we adopted it as a program coming together from when times were really, really bad to times that got really, really good. When we were down in the dumps and wondering what it was going to be, that 212 mentality of what's one thing we can do today to be better has stuck through years and years and years. Then that 212 becomes our team goal. When we hit the team offensive goal, the team defensive goal, that team win, everybody gets a 212 for the win. Everybody in the program. I don't care if you played 1 play, 0 plays, or all 100 plays. You get that and you put that on your helmet. It's on our t-shirts. It's on our things that go along with maybe what that tagline is for that particular year. And all of it's kind of thought out, and it's a long process of what it's going to be for that year. For this past year, we were lucky enough to have more home games than away games. So ours was Goals football, protect the nest at being Goals. We always talk about our Goals nest of our student fans was protect it, guys. This is our territory. You have to believe in what we're doing, protect it with 212 underneath. So the 212 is still there, guys. I mean, we're going to keep doing, we're going to get one thing better. But this year, we're going to protect it. We're going to make sure that we take care of business. I mean, we've had in the past, we've had leave no doubt after a season where we went 3-7 and we lost 5 games by 1 score or less. We left out. This year, we're not going to leave doubt. As we were building a program, our tagline was brick by brick. How are we going to do this? We're going to do it brick by brick. We're going to do it with small things that we do that stack up to bigger things. Again, all of these things were thought of for that particular year. It's not just a tagline that's easy. It's got to be based on those kids, those clientele, of what they are. Everything revolves around 212. We put it on everything and we believe in that. And that's why we want the kids to be excited. We partnered together Clubhouse, between you and your brother. It's like we have this small feel. I mean, for me, being able to talk to you guys like this, we have a real conversation. I feel like I've really got to know you guys. We had small little connections with Point Pleasant Beach out of nowhere when you guys are in Illinois. And you're talking about your family vacations and things like that. To me, that's so cool. I'm walking around town last year on like a FaceTime with you guys when we're just talking gear and talking excitement about things like that. We want the kids to feel good in what they're doing and wearing something different, because on the field, we go to war. You have the uniforms that are given to you. You know what I mean? It's gonna be red. It's gonna be white. It's gonna have gulls on it. Let's go to war. Let's get some grass stains. Let's beat it up. Outside of that, we want you to be very, very excited about what you wear and what you wear across your chest. What you wear in the community. What you wear out. We did 60 hats last year in a program that had 40. We had coaches wearing them. We had a few other stakeholders that wore them. The kids got excited. The parents got excited. People around town got excited and said, where'd you get that hat from? I mean, hats work. Everybody can wear a hat, especially when it's an adjustable hat. As silly as it sounds, everybody can wear it. Doesn't matter who you are. You could be 90 years old. You could be 9 years old. You can wear a hat. People wear hats. And it just shows their belief in the team, that they're excited about the team. They wear the Mets hat, the Yankees hat, the Jets hat, the Giants hat. They wear it with pride. We want them to wear Gulls football with pride. So partnering with you guys, we did our black hats last year. They had 212 as and we had that on the side. This year, we did a little switch. I actually got it right here. We got the G on the side. The G is our other sticker that we do. The reason we use the G is because Gulls football became our brand. And the G used to be on an old set of helmets that one of our coaches, that was actually on the helmet that he wore. He's one of our older coaches. He's an alum. He had a great group of guys that are with him that have done amazing things in the community, amazing things around town. And guess what? After all these years, they still live in town 25 years later. So I wanted to kind of honor that G as we rebranded to Gulls football. And that's the individual goal. So when that kid scores a touchdown, he puts that G on there. You know what I mean? When that kid throws, the touchdown pass, he puts that G on there. You earn that from an individual standpoint. And now it's on the hats. So now in the 2 years of partnering with Clubhouse, we've been able to take our brand and go from beach football or beach to Gulls football. And we've done that in partner with gear. And we've done that in partner with an image that's easily readable, that the kids can believe in. And again, it goes right to left across your chest. There's something about that it's across your heart, and wear it. Be excited about wearing it. Like you said, when we first started, less than, we're talking 8 years ago, I couldn't give these kids a hat. I would beg for them to wear anything. Now we have kids saying, I want that for my uncle. I want that for my brother. I want coaches on staff that want to give it to their dads or their brothers. It's not just gear. I mean, it's not just that. It's a brand. It's a belief. It's what we are. And we're Gulls, and we're a Gulls football program. Being able to incorporate that doesn't happen without you and Max believing in what we're doing and why we're doing it. If you're just like, yeah, we'll create some gear for you. We'll just do some standard football gear. Anybody can do that. Anybody in the world can do that. I mean, you could just throw a football on it and then throw your team logo on it. And like you said, wrap family on it. Easy for you guys, right? You still make the same amount of money. You guys said, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to use this color? Why do you want to do this? Why do you want all your coaches to look the same? We've branded out now, where last year we did, not only did we do the hats for all the kids and, coaches, but then we did a coaches package, and the coaches package was Gulls football and the pants. And that was with our athletic trainer had them, our AD had them, all the coaches had them. So we're in uniform in the sideline, and we're together with this brand, but this brand doesn't happen without you guys. A lot of time you look at a sideline, everybody's wearing something different because there's no identity to it. Let me just find my beach football polo from last year, or let me find my sweatshirt that I have. I'm going to wear something that has that. There's not that to it. When they see the sideline, the community members see the sideline, and we all have it. And then they start asking questions. What does that 212 mean? You know what I mean? Or why do they go with the G and they don't go with the same Gull logo that's all over the school? Why don't they have beach all over everything? they start asking good questions that have answers that they probably don't expect from, the football guys. And
Yeah.
that's with branding. Without branding, Adam, none of this gets done. You know what I mean? None of that part gets done. You don't get the outside stuff. You don't get the kids who maybe are on the fringe. You know what I mean? Because they just wouldn't be able to see it much. Oh, you got the same shirt? Yeah, I got that shirt at orientation. What, it just says the word football on it? Yeah, I got the same one. You know what I mean? When they see that there's different brand to what we do, they're like, what? I might want to see what that's all about. Let me see what's different about it, And then there's less anxiety about what contact is or how much we're practicing or doing any other things. They just want to get involved and they see what it's out. And with the parents that say, I don't want my kid to get hurt, we're able to kind of get around that more and talk about, well, let's talk about the kids that have come through this program, what they've done. The kids, what they're doing in college. The kids are right now that, 4 or 5 years ago, what they're doing in the workforce now. That majority of those kids from that original team now are police officers. They're working in finance. They're teachers. They're involved in coaching. They're involved in really great things that they're doing that they had to work extremely hard in. And they felt like football helped them with that. Let me lead you with that before we start talking about contact. You know what I mean? Like, let's think of the bigger picture. And I think the parents are starting to come along with that too, which helps. We got to find any edge we can, getting back to the group one and the numbers and the belief in what we are. And, I think it helps that they see a crazy football coach like me with my daughter who's like stomping around, in the bleachers, like the girl from Remember the Titans who's yelling at the kids to line up for the trainer. But those kids will come in here and they will make sure knuckles to Thea, my daughter, before even me. They see my wife in the hallway, maybe testing a kid, and they say, "Hi, Mrs. Z." They're how cool is that? Like, because that's my world, right? That's why I do anything that I do. And the fact that those kids like have that feeling towards them, man, you know what? We get to win football games too. I mean, we're winning, and it's all back to winning. Just I've won, man. Whatever happens from here, I've won. No matter what my final record is going to be at the end of this when I'm done. I mean, I tell my wife I'm probably going to die out there. You ain't getting me off these sidelines. Unfortunately, anytime soon. But I've won, and I think that's why I can do what I do. And we have such great conversations, and we're able to build what we're building. And it's really cool. And I get to be on a podcast like this and talk about all that stuff. And you give the platform for that, which I'm very thankful for.
I feel like the part of what you were saying was like very simplified of like a kid sees a cool piece of gear and he wants to join the team. And yeah, like when you get really simple about it, there might be a couple like that. But there's also like in a small town, the brain that goes so far that like in Chicago when the Bears are hot and people are wearing Bears stuff to work and like there is energy in the air that like people are proud to be, from Chicago. Same kind of thing applies in a small town when the team's playing well and some random guy's wearing a Goals hat football to get a sandwich and someone's wearing a hoodie and it's all matching. That builds excitement for the program for parents to be like, oh yeah, I know Johnny was a football player and he's like, he's seems to be like, he's got his things together. It seems like this other guy in the football team's got his things together. So like off of the football talk, it's more so like parents are proud about kids in their town and what they've done. And then kids in town will see, oh, like, that kid who's 6 foot on the football team is wearing this stuff around. I want to be like him. And those things also start to build up. So especially in a small town, when you get to see your branding around town and people wanting to wear it, it's not because the product is cool. I mean, hopefully the product is cool, but it's because you're building a program that people want to be a part of. And then you have some cool product that people can wear to like show it off. But it starts with having a program people want to be a part of. And then it grows from there. And it's important to have the gear for people to then give you opportunity to show it off so that people can talk about it without even saying a word.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we're so small, we don't have buses. Kids are getting around, they're either getting dropped off or they're riding their bike. When you're riding your bike and you throw a hat on, throw a Ghost football hat on. That's what we want. We don't want that to be a thought. We want that to be like, that's what you do. You throw that hat on. You throw your hoodie on when it's a little windy out. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what you want. That's what you want a program to be. And it seems like, oh, it's just gear. It's not just gear. Not when you're in a small town. It's not when you're walking around town. And like you said, we have a main strip of downtown here at Point Pleasant Beach where it just got small businesses, coffee shops, clothing shops, convenience stores like that are just small business, family owned typically. And when you see that kid come in to get that, Gatorade and he's got a Ghost football shirt on, when you see that mom come in, with her Gulls beanie on to get her cup of coffee. Wow. Like that's what you want a small town to be. And it has to be that, you know what I mean? For that to be the word of mouth, to get the numbers from 25 to 40, it has to be that because then when the parents are in and they believe in it and believe in the program, then they're going to be more willing to say, yeah, I'm okay with my son giving this a shot, even though I
Mhm.
wasn't before. It is. It goes such a long way around here that, again, these are things that I've learned. I didn't know this in the beginning. It wasn't like some magic book that told me to do it this way. It was just kind of over time and kind of getting the feel for it. And now it's just like, this is just what we do.
Yeah. I have one more thing, but I'm not sure how much time you have left. You have like another 10 minutes or so?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this part, I always kind of stay away from like tactical, like actual game plan stuff because we talked to a bunch of different coaches and I don't know a lick about football tactics. So I don't even need to go there. But I think and I'm not even sure if this was accurate. This is from like random research we did. It sounded like you had changed like the whole offensive scheme of your system from when you started. Is that right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
So
We've definitely gone through some changes for sure.
So talk to me about that because I feel like coaches, especially high school coaches, figure out a system and like this is my blueprint, this is my program, this is what I do. I would imagine it's pretty difficult to switch or change that, maybe from like a standpoint of like telling your athletes like, no, we're actually going to do something completely different. We have a new
Yeah.
mindset now, and you kind of have to. I feel like there's probably some ego of that too, of like you have to let go of like what you thought was and admit that I want to change something up and have the kids be able to adapt to it. So talk to me about that. I feel like some coaches kind of get stuck and then after there for a while, they're like, I can't change it now. This is how I do things. So was
Absolutely.
that ever an issue with you in terms of having to think about changing things? And how did you get to the point to realize you wanted to make a change?
Yeah, I mean, I think in football, I've been around enough coaching staffs and around different coaches and things like that. That typically that statement is, "We do what we do." I mean, that's a classic football coach line. We do what we do. I think just in the where we're at right now in the game of football, do what we do doesn't work. I mean, you can't be just so stubborn in running one thing. We have adapted to the type of athletes we have. We're not going to have a large offensive line. We're not going to have kids who can just throw you around and move you around. We never will. We don't have enough kids to have that type of kid. Maybe we get one, but we're not going to have five, what I mean? Or let alone 7 or 8 injuries. You need that many kids really to have a line. We're not going to have those type of kids. We need to do little things that are always going to be advantageous to maybe being a little smaller and quicker, maybe being a little smarter of the playbook. So typically we have run what's a system called a wing T, and a wing T is just very angle based in terms of your blocking. You're kind of more getting in the way instead of moving another individual, which we can't do. And we've adapted those different things too to be a run heavy team in years where we play a lot of guys both ways. And unfortunately, a lot of times where you see the kids getting tired or the issues is on the defensive side of the ball. So our mentality is a lot of years, our best defense is being on the field more offensively. 4 yards is huge for us because we do that 3 times without any penalties and with doing the right thing. We get another set of downs, and that's another 2.5 minutes of game clock. Where for us, that's less time for those same kids to then be on the field to try to stop somebody else's offense who's typically fresh. Because when we're looking at a sideline in most teams that we play, a lot of the line is sitting there waiting to get, plus defense. Not a lot of guys going both ways. So we were very run heavy and for the multitude of reasons. And that was successful for us. And we'd win a lot of games, 17-14, 13-10, 10-7. Our first year in 2019, we won multiple games, 10-7. And I don't care how it gets done. It could be 3-0. I said 2 of the best games I've ever coached in my life. We won the game 8-6. We won in a driving rainstorm against a team we had no business beating. But in the second half, they didn't touch the ball once. We had a drive that was 21 plays, and it took up the entire third quarter into the fourth quarter. And we knew we couldn't give them the ball back. So what did we do? We onside kicked and recovered the onside kick. And on 4th and 2, we gained about 2.25 yards and didn't give them the ball back and won that game 8-6. Had no business beating that team. But again, our best defense that night was we didn't have to play defense. Now, fast forward to 2 years ago, we had a running back that broke the school record for all-time rushing yards. He was getting 5 yards a carry. We're not going to, we had a junior quarterback that was growing into the position first year as a full-time starter. We didn't want to put too much on his plate. We knew we had a pretty good team. We wound up winning 6 games. We were right there. We had a divisional playoff berth and all those things. One of our best years that we've had since that 2019 year because we ran the ball. We ran the ball effectively. Now that quarterback has a heck of an offseason, puts in so much work. Also, it helps he, put on about 20 pounds, grew about 3 inches, and could throw the ball around a little bit. Now, let's get back to what your original question was. Do what we do means run the ball with now that seniors graduated. Now our running backs in the backfield are all young guys, sophomores and freshmen. Do we do what we do and run the ball with those kids, with 15-year-olds? Do we do what we do? Or do we let the 17-year-old kid who's worked his tail off all summer start to throw the ball around a little bit and adapt to what our offense is? Flip the script completely. So when you talk about our quarterback this year, Matthew Rossi, one of the greatest humans you'll ever be around, went from 600 passing yards, as a junior to 2,400 passing yards. That's a big difference. But we went from that team that had success, 6 wins, run the ball, do what you do, coach, right? It wasn't who we were. That do what we do in Matt's junior year as a quarterback, we had an entire senior offensive line. Not big kids, but they knew what they were supposed to do. They were in the right spots. Flip to this past year, brand new offensive line. What works for an offensive line? A quick passing game. Balls out quick. They don't need to block. What's our best blocking? Not having to block for too long. Again, it seems simple, right? When you think about it, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Why don't you do that? Do what you do. It means that you got to run the ball, right? That's what that's who I was. That's my mentality. The guys that I knew would always joke around with me this year, they were calling me like Air Zaccone and laughing that, we remembered how the ball can actually go vertically in the air. They didn't know that I knew that was part of football. But yeah, you guys are real funny. You don't know what we're dealing with over here. For those things to happen. But we put it in the hands of a kid who worked to get that second year as captain, and it changed the whole dynamic of what we were. We went from a ground first team to a pass first team. Then teams that have played us all these years, we have some pretty good rivalries, are like, wait a minute, this isn't on the script. You know what I mean? It flipped the script on it. Now, I think even going forward with the type of kids now that we have, with the more kids that we have, are getting more athletes. We've shown we could throw the ball. Now you're a kid that's coming up to Point Beach. What do you want to do? You want to let's show Z we could throw the ball. He's going to throw if I can show that I can throw. If I have the ability to throw, we will throw. And I'm very lucky I have an offensive coordinator who is young offensive coordinator. He's probably the youngest offensive coordinator around. He's 25, going to be 26 years old. When I first said you're going to be the offensive coordinator 3 years ago when he was 23, he's like, wait, what? You know what I mean? It's when you know the game, you know the game. When you understand what we need to do, it doesn't matter what your age is. Everybody's got to get a start somewhere. Some gave me a start at 34 to be a head coach, but I was coaching, when I was 21, I wasn't ready to coach football. I was out there 21 and running a strength and conditioning program and coaching football and learning on the fly. If Dan Duddy, who was the head coach at Monsignor Donovan at the time, said, "Oh, you're too young," I would never get involved with coaching. Why would I give this kid a shot who's incredible? Kid's a genius, loves the game of football, Point Beach alum, going to give everything that he has. He adapted because he said we need to adapt. And I'm not going to be the stubborn head coach that says, no, we can't adapt. You're the offensive coordinator. If you think this is best, go. Our defensive coordinator, Jeff Bauer, whatever our defense needs to be in that particular year, game, whatever it may be, go for it. Because one injury for us may mean that defensive end now so he comes off the field. So now the linebacker has to go to defensive end and the corner has to go to linebacker. And then the kid from the bench has to go in. Like, nobody understands that that's what's happening. We're in the final playoff push, and a kid who never played football varsity level was now at the linebacker. And then that linebacker who's about 5'6" is now playing D end. And then we have a guard who is the backup fullback. That's what we did on a division championship team that won a playoff game. But we have those kids ready, and we're ready to adapt. If we do what we do, we'd be back to that 2018 team that was, 25 kids, but do what we do. The kids are like, well, this stinks. Do what we do means losing. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work. Adapting on the fly of a program, for sure. Like, what we've done offensively. But Adam, we adapt weekly because we have to. One injury for us could be the long snapper, could be the fullback and linebacker. Those are 3 phases of the game that have drastically changed. So now, if we're at the backup long snapper, oh man, we better have some good drives. We really can't punt. Now we can't run the ball as much. And now that linebacker is gone, we got to move some guys around. We might have to blitz more or do something. So there's always that idea back to Group 1 football. It changes, and you can't be stuck with do what we do. Do what we do just doesn't. It doesn't work. It will never work.
I think I saw it. I think it was the first play of the season last year. You guys aired it out for like a 50-yard pass or something like that. And I bet the other team had no idea.
No idea.
Point Pleasant Beach was going to pull that out.
Yeah, and it was a play action pass because everything looked like run, and we air it out, and then you let and our quarterback knew from that point on. It's like, all right, we're doing it now. Like, you know what I mean? And I showed you to have confidence in me because listen, that could go horribly wrong. We can
Yeah.
miss a block, the quarterback gets blown up, he's hurt, or he just chucks it up and we throw an interception. I look like an idiot. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
what are you doing? Why don't you go back to what we did last year? You won 6 games, run the ball. Now you're going to try to throw it. But, the crowd loved it because what's every crowd? It doesn't matter what you're winning. Throw the ball more. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
your Monday morning quarterback, fan is going to say throw the ball more. So everybody was pretty happy with what we did last year. We'll be obviously, and then this year we'll be a little more balanced. And that balance will come to the backfield of kids who work their tails off as sophomores are now juniors. They're going to be stronger. They're going to be faster. They understand the system more. It's going to be a new quarterback. The offensive line is going to be a year now seasoned. We have 4 or 5 guys coming back on the offensive line, but we've shown the ability now to pass. We've shown what we can do now by changing some things up and adapting to some things and some new concepts. We can still pass more, but we don't need to pass as much as we did this past year because we do have, some things that we feel pretty confident with. So, and then we'll adapt. Some games we may come out and just throw a quick game and, that may set up the run. Other games we may just come at you, if it's maybe a tougher game and we know that they're going to be a team that can score on us or can really take advantage of our numbers being low, then you know what? We may come out and, try to get those 4 yards and a cloud of dust and, play less defense and be on the field more. Again,
Yeah.
that's, whatever the situation calls for, we can't be too stubborn to say, that we're going to only do it this way. Yeah, you have to be flexible.
Yeah. It seems to just be the reality of the world you're in as a small school. And maybe, I don't know, was it hard to make the switch in the scheme, or was it more like, I know my personnel is, I need to make a change. It's pretty evident. Was that more of the
Yeah,
thought
I mean,
process
I
then?
think it was a little bit of both. I think I had my reservations for it because when you do have you start to kind of get comfortable with what you're doing and you're doing it a certain way and then you have success with it, you almost feel like you overthink it, right? As a
Yeah.
head coach, you classically will overthink everything. And my biggest concern was I overthinking this with, because if we pass and we don't have success, man, we're taking no time off the clock. Man, we're going to go right back into defense and right back into special teams, which is tough. Like, at the time we graduated the long snapper. So things that you don't think about, like you just think of football, you're like, oh, well, you just keep throwing. Yeah, but I'm thinking that we just graduated the long snapper. This kid's brand new to long snapping. That snap goes over his head. Like that one play could be the difference in the game. We've been in a lot of close games. I had my reservations, the stuff that kept me up all night. But the confidence in the quarterback and how hard he worked made it an easier transition for me to say, let's do this. And then having our offensive coordinator, Josh Yates, to be like, hey, listen, coach, listen, this is going to work. I think we can do this. And when he says, I think we can do this, we can, because he'll find a way to make it happen. And I just have a belief. I let coaches coach. I don't want to be a micromanage. As a head coach, you have to be a CEO. You can't be a micromanager. You have to be a CEO. You have to see the bigger picture. I don't want to coordinate a side of the football, any phase of the 3. Will I have my say in those things that I want to pass more here, or I want to do this here, or I want to onside kick here, or I want to go for the field goal here? Yeah, I can make those calls. I can make the ultimate timeout call. You know what I mean? But during the game, you're the offensive coordinator, you're the defensive coordinator, you're the special teams coordinator. I have to show a belief in you because these kids have to believe in what you're doing too. If I'm saying I don't believe in that, or I'm arguing with the offensive coordinator every call he makes, the kids are going to be like, what are we doing? You don't even believe in what we're doing. We're not going to believe in it. Let them coach. I think that's also been the biggest thing that I've learned as a head coach. Taking a step back, you coach a lot less football when you're a head coach. You manage the whole thing. Like we've talked about in this podcast, community and slogans and winning the day and student athletes and becoming better humans. That stuff is why you're a head coach. I got to coach a lot of football before I became a head coach. I had a good probably 12 years of coaching football before I became a head coach. So I got to coach a lot of football. I got to do a lot of the X's and O's. X's and O's is not my thing anymore. It doesn't need to be. I can't be so absorbed in that because I have to be absorbed in the human part of the game. And having great coaches allows me to do that, which I think makes me then a more successful head coach. Having a great assistant coaches makes you a great head coach. And I will go to the grave with that. If you want to be the guy who's running the whole thing and doing everything, you're going to burn out. And that's everything you do in life, right? Like if you and Max were running some new designs, you're like, well, I'm going to do it this way, and I need to do it this way all the time, and I really don't want to hear what you're saying because my way is you're going to burn out. I mean, you need the give and take, and you need to believe that if Max is running something, he's going to run it the right way, and Max needs to feel the same way to you. If you give it to your processing department, that's going to get back to me on shipment details. You have to believe they're give me the right shipment details. You have to believe in them. If you're over their shoulder and like, well, I'll just do it, you're going to burn out. You're going to go from something you love and something you guys created to, a burden. I never want football to be a burden, just like I'm sure in what you do. You never want that to be like, man, I got to go to work today. I got to deal with this, that, and the other. You want to be able to have time to carve out for a podcast to highlight different things that you're doing. You want to be able to talk about new branding. You want to be able to talk about new materials and things like that, to have the time to do that. I want to go to a clinic in Atlantic City like I did a few weeks ago to learn and have time to do that. I want to be able to have successful weight room sessions. I want to be able to attend the kids' games. I want to be able to, go maybe visit a kid that's in college or doing something in his career. Maybe sit down and, grab a burger and catch up on life. I can do that now because I'm not so consumed with all the other things, because I do have great coaches, and I do have guys that I believe in what they're doing, and I'm going to give them the keys to do what they're doing. If they show me that they're not getting it done, then that's a different story, but they don't have a reason not to. They want to win just as much as I do. We have a bunch of competitive people that are here and they want the best for these kids. And the best part is they have the same mentality. They coach multiple sports. They're around these kids. They want the kids to be successful. They want to see them doing really cool stuff in the community. All right, then game of football stuff, that's easy. Let's just get together and do football. Like that's great. The other stuff that we're on board with, we've had a couple kids that have had some real family stuff going on. That's heavy. If I didn't have them on my side to help out with some of that stuff, man, I'd be burnt out, but when you have those guys or when that's happening, I know offensively, defensively, game plan is done. It's great. I believe in those guys. I can really help that kid out. That's why I'm a head coach. That's why you get to be a head coach, right? To do those things. And I'm so glad that I didn't get into that do what we do stubborn mentality. Well, we got to run what we were going to run. I'm just worried about X's and O's. If I was that guy, I wouldn't be having as much fun with what we're doing. I feel like too many guys get caught up in that. And that's when they do get burnt out. And I don't want to ever be burnt out. I want to keep enjoying this ride,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you just kind of gave us a great masterclass of the whole small school program and taking us from kind of those early stages of the days that you were in and where you're at now. I think was very detailed. I appreciate you sharing like details with us. I think other coaches that'll be able to watch it can relate to a lot of it in the reality of that you guys live in a small school program and just as a football coach. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you.